the U.S. Sun successfully filed a FOIA request with the Pentagon, and they released 1,574 pages of what you could only call real life X-Files. And this was a 4-year-long battle to get this stuff released. History is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. I'd like to introduce everyone who isn't already familiar with this to a concept known as Chekov's gun. The wonderful, amazing writer Chekov famously said that if you have a gun in the first scene of a play, it needs to go off by the end of the play. And we pulled a bit of a Chekov's gun with you today, fellow conspiracy realists. We talked about alien pregnancies for anyone who was around during a certain time in American history. You may remember excellent rags like the National Enquirer, Weekly World News, Bat Boy Comes Back, you know what I mean? Abraham Lincoln's gay Bigfoot lover discovered in Boise, those kind of headlines. And some of the best fact-checking in the world, I'm sure. Nobody bothered to dig into that. We're having fun today. Something hit the news recently, and it caught my eye, and I knew I couldn't be alone. The headline reads something like this: 1,500 pages of UFO-related research were just declassified as part of a FOIA request. Now, for anybody else who has been closely following disclosure, the idea that governments have knowledge of extraterrestrials and will eventually release that knowledge, you know, it's been an exciting couple of years. We have a lot of ongoing investigations that we're keeping eyes on. Full disclosure, I can't say too much right now, but there's a kick-ass show about UAPs that is coming your way this year. If you want to hear more, then stay tuned because it's still in the early stages, but it'll be worth it. It's legit. And that's what I think bothered a lot of people on the more skeptical side. The fact that there was legitimate, and there is legitimate investigation into UAPs, and not all of those UAPs can be explained. And they do appear in some cases to be capable of troubling things, you know, right angle flights, transmedium flights going through space, air, and water as one craft in one fell swoop, which is something that humans can't build yet, so far as we know officially. But what about the stories of alien abductions? What about the stories of bizarre burns, strange medical maladies, unaccounted for lapses in time, or unaccounted for pregnancies? That's right. The U.S. Sun, actually, you know, who they're not often thought of as a super high-end source, but the U.S. Sun successfully filed a FOIA request with the Pentagon, and they released 1,574 pages of what you could only call real life X-Files. And this was a 4-year-long battle to get this stuff released. Originally, on December 18th, 2017, they asked Uncle Sam for all files, reports, or video files related to ATIP, Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, which we mentioned earlier. And the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, finally came back with a mother load. The stuff that really freaked people out was the reports of exposure to what they're calling anomalous vehicles. 42 cases from medical files, 300 unpublished cases where people have been injured after encountering these things. This is strange because there's a bunch of stuff here. I haven't read all of it yet myself, but I've read a good bit of what is out there now, and you can find the report that you're going to want to spend the most time on. You're going to find it via the Black Vault by Greenwald. This report is called Anomalous Acute and Subacute Field Effects on Human Biological Tissues. Fascinating stuff. And as far as government titles go, That is an abnormal page turner. So a lot of stuff has been held back due to privacy concerns in the FOIA release, which is not unusual. But to be clear, again, this is a government publication which is making mention of not just injuries, brain damage, nerve damage, headaches, etc., but an actual unaccounted for pregnancy. So someone is officially on record now saying that they were abducted, and then when they returned to Earth, and then later they had a child. They were, obviously this is someone with ovaries. They got impregnated and they were bearing a child. They don't specifically say it was an alien. They say unaccounted for pregnancy. This went viral pretty much immediately. But at this, did you guys hear about this before we were talking about it? I'm sure. Okay. So we can't account for it either.
Really?
I didn't hear about the unaccountable
So we're not involved, to be clear. I saw this just proliferate across the internet and in UFO circles and enthusiast forums and so on. But there are a couple of myths we need to bust about this. And it's something that I had mentioned in our notes earlier. First, this is not maybe all it's cracked up to be. A lot of people are portraying this as though the U.S. government itself is saying, wow, look at this. We've got a half human, half alien hybrid. They're not saying this. When they released this stuff to the sun, they were releasing things that they had received, not necessarily things that they had investigated and created themselves. So as much of a bummer as it is to say this, it is in the nature of our show to admit that we found where they were receiving a lot of this information from, and it doesn't bear up to serious scrutiny nor to serious investigation. Some of it does. Like MUFON does a lot of good work and they try not to jump to conclusions. A lot of these are reports from MUFON that were sent to Uncle Sam. And then additionally, people have, or perhaps, in a case of wishful thinking, have mistaken this for a cosign on the part of the Pentagon or ATIP. It's not. MUFON, as we talked about before, is a civilian nonprofit group. They study UFO sightings. The report that mentions this pregnancy is taking stuff from other non-governmental bodies reporting. And even the MUFON report, their conclusion is there's enough evidence to support a hypothesis that some advanced systems are already deployed and opaque to full U.S. understandings. It's not a Pentagon report. That's the MUFON report that got sent to the Pentagon. It's very, very, very different. It's like if someone said, hey, stuff they don't want you to know, Ben, Matt, Noel, Doc, Mission Control, send us everything you have on the art of making a vegan quesadilla. And then we sent back a bunch of records and videos, I guess, of us making quesadillas or other people making quesadillas. And in one of those, someone says, I personally believe that I spoke with a vegan quesadilla and it told me that I should be the president of Easter Island or whatever. And then, if you ran a headline as an unscrupulous journalist and you said, Ben, Matt, and Noel claim vegan quesadillas, speak to them and have told them to take, to become the rulers of Easter Island, a lot of people would just read that headline and go, oh, wow, that's wild. Actually, most people would read that headline and go, what is stuff they don't want you to know, which we're fine with. But that's what I'm saying is you see how easily these things get conflated. It's important to establish the truth of the matter.